right, welcome everyone. Hello, we're excited to have you here today. My name's Amber Hefner, and I am the executive director of IDEA. Excited to have our partners today, Synology, join us for this very informative webinar. And with that, I am going to kick it off to Chris Alden from Synology. Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Amber. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us here for today's presentation on complete backup and recovery from data disasters such as ransomware. As mentioned, my name is Chris Alden, and I'm a senior technical account manager with Synology America. So let's get right into it. During a recent United States House meeting, the FBI revealed that there has been a 75% increase in daily cybercrimes since the onset of the coronavirus across North America. Now, year over year, these attacks have been increasing in frequency and severity, with the average ransomware payment for infected companies reaching $100,000. Now, these payments are being made with really no guarantee that your data is going to be released or that you won't just be infected again. So this really puts entire organizations at really massive risk, since you're kind of dealing with criminals a lot of the time when you have to deal with this. So that means that a big part of my job is making sure that everybody is set up for ransomware preparedness. Now, this encompasses three main elements. And the first one is prevention. Now, real quick, this is an exercise that I always recommend everybody that it works with does. Make a list of all of your company or your school's devices and ask yourself, if even one of these were to get infected, would my business or my school be all right? Would we lose important student data or accounting information or anything of that nature, things that we should be holding on to for a long period of time? A great thing to do next is go through every single device across the organization and make sure that all of your software is up to date to its most recent versions. These are often where a lot of security vulnerabilities are patched. So it's really good to make sure anything that your organization is using is as up to date as possible. On top of that, you want to check that you have strong, up-to-date antivirus set in place as well, and then it's going to be covering all of the machines you need protected. Now, of course, the first half of this battle is securing all of the devices. But the second part is a little bit more finicky, and that's educating all of your employees to watch out for things like phishing attempts or malware in emails and attachments. And of course, making sure that everybody is using strong password rules and nothing easy to guess. We've had a lot of cases where it's admin, and then the machine gets infected and kind of hard to work with. Now, the second piece of this is response. Now, your schools or your businesses need to have a defined response plan in case of a malicious software attack. Now, if you think about it like this, often we have fire drills for our kind of in-office workforce. I really suggest that you also have ransomware drills as well. Now, the reason for this is this really just makes sure that things are top of mind for everybody across the organization, that things get reported as soon as they occur. We do have accidents where maybe somebody does click on an email or clicks on a link that immediately they realize they shouldn't have. Reporting that immediately is going to be really good. And it also makes sure that your IT staff has an official response plan in order to mitigate any of these damages as soon as they happen. Because as we'll come to see, time is often of the essence here when it comes to ransomware. Now, the last piece is recovery. This is simply the ability to roll back your affected devices to the state that they were before the attack occurred. Now, this is primarily what we'll be focused on here today, as this is something that every business should have implemented. These attacks are continually evolving, and it is getting more difficult to avoid any potential disasters. So in case something slips through all of the preventative measures that we set up, you can make sure that everything can go back to normal. Now, here's how a recovery plan works. Let's say that you have hourly backups running on all of your pertinent workstations or servers, or as designated here, you have them set up every 5 minutes. Now, this just means that every 5 minutes, all of your data across your various backups and your devices is being saved. Now, let's say that somewhere along the line, you detect a ransomware or a crypto locker attack. You can kind of see it begin to take hold of your systems, and Let's say that after identifying it, your team's all well trained and you've figured out all of the steps before this, so you're able to successfully neutralize it. You can isolate it, take that machine off the network, and make sure it can't infect any further. Now, unfortunately, depending on how long it remained unnoticed or how fast it operated, you might have some infected machines that are damaged or they're asking for a ransom. This is where those backups come into play. You can simply roll back to your most recent backup from before the attack occurred and restore your systems exactly as they were. Frequent backups of all of this important data make it so that you can easily recover your data without having to pay any sort of ransom. And hopefully, if you back up frequently, you won't lose too much work either. Now, here is the ideal disaster recovery plan as I see it, which you might have heard of before, referred to as a 3-2-1 backup solution. Now, step one, we need to take all of our PCs, servers, virtual machines, all of that data, and push it to our primary device that's located on premises. Next, we want to send this data to an offsite location. Now, this is both steps 2 and 3. This could either be another Synology NAS that's at your headquarters or another school or another office, or it could be a cloud account with any provider that you like. Now, there are several merits to both, and really in the ideal scenario, you'd be accomplishing steps 2 and 3 together, but getting at least one of these offsite backups is a really great start and where a lot of your focus should be. So let's go back to step 1, and let's talk about setting up your primary backup first. And for that, I actually have a case study that we recently accomplished with the University of Washington. Now, one of their schools had just over 200 PCs that needed to be secured and backed up in case of any potential data loss. Now, there were two main hurdles here. The first being that they have several different offices throughout school, and some of the important computers belong to employees or researchers who work from home. So not all of them were on the same local area network and able to access the same kind of device in that manner. Secondly, they all held sensitive client data that was highly important and could not be risked at all. I'm sure you're all well aware of FERPA regulations, so we had to keep those in mind. By utilizing a singular on-prem Synology NAS, all of their remote workers and in-office staff had their computers and work files backed up every day on schedule to one centralized location. This is all safe and secure and under all their data regulations that they needed to hit. So why did they opt for a local backup of this data? Well, first things first, they wanted to keep their data under their control and within those regulations. By keeping the data on premises, they had full governance of exactly who could access it and how they could access it. Secondly, in the event of any disasters, they can recover all of that data they're storing instantly. Since many people have terabytes of work data, especially in research fields, they can't always rely on internet speeds to recover their systems because you could be there all day and all through the night. Sometimes you can't even use the internet at all, depending on what kind of data you're trying to get. So in this case, they can directly connect over their local network for really fast access and get that data instantly. Now, lastly, and perhaps most popularly, the university was able to save over $200,000 a year in recurring data backup and cloud costs while keeping the same benefits of access to and protection of their data anywhere. So let's talk about implementing a plan like this at really any school. Now, one of the first hurdles that we often come across with any school system is that our data is going to be scattered across a variety of different platforms. We have all of our employees' computers, we have file servers for everybody within the school system. Oftentimes we have virtual machines running a few different facets as well. And we most likely have software as a service products that are fairly ubiquitous. For instance, I'm delivering this presentation with PowerPoint, and this is one of the Microsoft 365 products. Microsoft 365 and G Suite often hold a lot of our important data as well. So the question is, how can we easily back up all of our data if it's scattered across all of these different platforms? Now, we developed software for exactly this purpose, and it's called Active Backup for Business. This means that all of your PCs, your servers, your virtual machines, and your various software as a service products can be backed up into a singular device for safekeeping and easy recovery in case of any data disasters or being unable to access it otherwise. So let's actually just go ahead and take a quick look at that interface right now, and I'll walk you through how I back up my work computer. So here we are kind of at my desktop, and you can see I'm opening a browser here. And this is actually our operating system on all of our Synology NAS devices. Whether you're on a 2-bay desktop unit or a 24-bay rack-mounted unit, you'll be greeted with this interface, and that's called Disk Station Manager, which is our operating system. So in this case, what I'm going to do, and you should be fairly familiar with this layout here, I'm going to go up to the main menu in the top left-hand corner, and this is where you can see all of the different applications you have installed on your Synology NAS. In this case, I'm going to open up Active Backup for Business. Now, this is available for free download on any of our Plus series and above NASs. You can use this again on a 2-bay or on a larger device, depending on what you need. And you'll come to see that often with our software, you're immediately greeted with the Overview tab. And this is just to give you a quick look at everything that you're doing with your device. Now, in this case, in the top left-hand corner, you can see the protected devices. I just have one PC. I'm not currently backing up anything else here. You can see the backup calendar as well. Now, gray denotes that a backup didn't occur, and that's because I had turned my server off for quite some time. But in this case, anything that's green means that completed jobs had occurred and my data was fully backed up. Ongoing activities will show you that I'm actually backing up my computer right now. We can see when the last backup had successfully occurred. And this is great. We can see the storage status here as well. So again, all of the data across all of these various points is being deduplicated against each other. So if you have a lot of virtual machines running the same operating system, you're only going to be saving one copy of that operating system and then kind of keeping shadows of it everywhere else. So you're really minimizing the amount of data that you're storing on your device, but kind of maximizing the protection out of it. Here we can see that I have nearly 16 terabytes of data that's on my PC, but a lot of it is kind of shared through a bunch of different partitions and drives. So we can see that's actually 7.1 terabytes after deduplication. Now the logs here will instantly pull up anytime that there's a problem. You can just double click it and get more details here. You can even highlight it and they'll kind of give you a rough overview of what it is. Your transmission trends, this is especially useful if you have a lot of different devices being backed up, because you can see exactly how much data is moving through your backup tasks throughout the day. Now, we're going to back up my PC here. So if I click on PC, we can see that I currently have this computer, which is mine, that I'm currently using. Now, this is really easy. If we want to create a task for this, we simply highlight the computer or the group of computers or any other devices, and we click Create Task. Now here we can name a task. Task 1 for this purpose sounds great. I'll click Next. And then here asks you where you want to store this data. So I'll store it in the Active Backup for Business folder. And now you can dictate exactly what you're backing up. So here you can make it a full bare metal backup of your entire device. So every single thing about your computer can be saved and backed up. You can do certain system volumes or just certain areas as well. And then you can enable data transfer, compression, and encryption. In this case, let's just say we want to back up my entire device again. Click Next. And now here is where you dictate the schedule. So you can either do a manual backup where you have to come in and click backup every time you want to do it. You can do a scheduled backup, choose exactly what time that you want to be doing it. This is typically what I run here. But organizations often do backup by event as well. So when people log out at the end of the day, they sign out of their machine, that'll automatically trigger the backup job and all of their data for that day will be saved. I'll hit Next. And then here's where you set your retention policy. Now this can get pretty granular. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but really any of this is editable to kind of any rules that you see fit. Press Next. It'll have you do a task summary. Just make sure that everything is kind of up to exactly what you want. You hit Apply, and then it creates the job. And again, if you set up a schedule, you can either back this up now, or you can click No here. And when you do that, it'll show you exactly the next time that this backup is going to be occurring, which looks like 3 a.m. my time here. So that's a quick look at Active Backup for Business and kind of how easy it is to get started with creating some backup tasks. Now, let's jump back here to ransomware for a moment. Now, the main goal is to avoid the spread of ransomware's encryption. Now, here's how all of these different ransomware programs are designed to play out. Let's say that one of our employees' PCs here gets infected with ransomware through some means, such as an email or an attachment, and now their files are starting to get encrypted in the background. Now, we might not even notice it yet at this point. The employee using the computer might not even notice it yet at this point. And now let's say, we set up those hourly backups. They're consistently moving to our device. Or even an infected device connects to the NAS and starts trading files. We can easily see this proliferate across the network and start to affect our other devices. And all of a sudden, we have a lot of encrypted files everywhere. So this kind of seems like a disaster. Well, let's actually look back at our disaster recovery plan here. And we have one more step that we should add on to step one here that I'm going to call step 1B. And that is fully protecting our backups locally. We really want to set another measure of security for events just like this. Now we can accomplish this through another piece of license-free software that we offer called Snapshot Replication. Now, this will allow you to take a snapshot of any of your backup data on any schedule that you see fit as frequently as every 5 minutes. Now, the snapshot is read only. This is super important when it comes to ransomware, as it means it can't be written over. And it allows us to almost instantly recover our systems exactly as they were at the time of the snapshot. We can also go in and just recover certain files as well if we need to do that. Now, lastly, by using smart retention policies, we can make sure that older snapshots that might not prove useful anymore are freed up from the system. So we're just maintaining a smaller data footprint on the NAS overall, kind of minimizing our hard drive costs and things of that nature. So let's actually take a quick look at setting up a snapshot and how we can recover that data really quickly. So here, I'm going to exit out of there. And again, we're back in DSM. We're going to go up to the main menu here. And this time we're going to open up Snapshot Replication. Now again, we're greeted with the Overview tab that just shows us exactly what we're doing. But let's say that we want to make a snapshot of some of our important data here. Now if I go to the file station real quick, and I open this up, we can see I actually have a folder here called Important Data. And this is a lot of my work stuff. This is a lot of presentations and notes and things with clients. And I can't risk losing this. So let's go ahead and protect this folder. And when I click out of this, what we'll do is click on the Snapshots tab. And we can see all of the shared folders that we've created on our NAS. Now, some of these are file servers or backup repositories, depending on what we're doing with our NAS device. Important Data is actually a file share that's shared out with my entire team. So my entire team uses this to work. Super important that I protect this data. And we have a few ways of doing this. If we want to just quickly set kind of one snapshot, just so we have that peace of mind, we can do that right here, take an instant snapshot of this device, or we can click on settings once we have the folder highlighted, and we can enable a snapshot schedule. Now, this is kind of what I recommend everybody does when they set up their NAS, just so you have that extra layer of protection for virtually no cost here. Now, you can set up the schedule, again, to happen whenever you see fit. We can have this happen every hour on the hour. We can again, set this to be every 5 minutes if we want it to be really granular like that. But let's say once an hour sounds great for me. Again, you can set up retention policies here. And you can always retain snapshots, which means you can roll back to the day you set up your snapshots 5 years from now and push your systems back to that date. In this case, I don't really think that's going to be super valuable for me, but I can specify that I want the last 1,024 hours captured, so I can roll back to that in case ransomware is sitting in my system for a couple days. That way I can roll back and save anything I need. There's advanced retention policy rules as well, but again, we'll just hit OK. This is looking good to me. Now we can rest assured that this is protected, at least on the hour. So in about 8 minutes here, my first snapshot will be taken. But for the sake of this demo, I've actually been recording snapshots of this for quite a while. So let's go ahead and recover to one of these snapshots. And as you can probably guess, I'm going to click on the recovery tab here. Now here we can see these are the two files or two folders that are being snapshot on my system. Now, when I highlight the folder that I want to recover, I can click on Action and I can do a switch over of my system to that, or I can click on the Recover tab here. Now, I have a few options. This is going to allow me to look at any of my older snapshots here. Now we can see this has been taking every hour on the hour for quite some time. I'm keeping 1,024 copies, so we can see here that it's been turning over. And this is fantastic. They go back pretty far, but let's say that again, 1 p.m. I took a snapshot. Maybe I noticed that I had something in my system then, and I want to roll back to 12 from before that occurred. Now I have a few options. I can click Browse, and this will allow me to see that folder exactly as it was at that time. So I can make sure if anything looks strange or if I just want to recover particular files and folders this way, I can do that here. Or again, I can click on Action and I can restore my entire folder to that snapshot. So it'll be exactly as it was over an hour ago. Or if I don't want to do that, I don't want to overwrite everything because maybe just some things got messed up and I can recover those, I could clone this with a new name and then access all of those files that way. So we have a few options for recovering this data once it's snapshotted, but again, it's a few clicks and then we can make sure that we've got all of our files and folders protected. We can easily access them and pull them up exactly as they were, which is very important, especially in the event of any sort of ransomware or other disaster. So we've done a pretty good job so far of preparing ourselves for any potential malware attack, but there are, of course, a lot of other accidents and disasters that we should really prepare ourselves for as well. Uh, this is things, simple things like building fires or floods, or even somebody just knocking over one of your devices and then your hard drive acts all funny afterwards. So this is where that next step is going to come into play. We want to take all of our primary backups from our on-site location and we want to push those to an off-site location for safekeeping and easy recovery in case our primary site were to have any sort of issues. Now, snapshot replication is going to come to the rescue here once again. Those snapshots that we're taking of our primary backups can be replicated to a secondary device no matter where in the world it's located. For instance, if your office or your school can replicate their backup data to a device in another office or another school, or even at the owner or the principal's house or something of that nature. Now, there's a few ways to set this up. This doesn't just have to be from site A to site B. If you have several different schools in a district or branch offices for an organization, you can have all of them replicate their data to a single primary offsite device. This way, if any branch or school were to lose their device, you can recover it exactly as it was from that primary offsite location directly. And let's jump back into Snapshot here real quick, and I'll show you how that works. So again, probably used to this by now, we're in DSM, open up the main menu, and we'll open up Snapshot Replication. And you can already guess where I'm going next. That is the Replication tab. Now here we can see that I'm actually currently doing a replication task here. So I'm sending this offsite to another location. Now, if I wanted to create a task, I would simply click Create, click Next. It starts guiding you through this wizard-based process, which is super easy. Sorry if you heard a grunt, that was my dog. And here we can do a local source here. So if we have another partition on our NAS device, we can send it over to there and make sure that it's kind of on a separate hard drive as an extra layer of protection. Or we can do this to a remote destination. And if we choose that, we simply enter the server name or the IP address of where we're sending this, and then the login credentials to make sure that we can do that as well. Now in this case, I've already set this up, so I'm just going to run you through that task and what it's doing. Now here, if I click Action, I can edit the task and change it on the fly if I need to, change any of the rules, and that'll automatically save over. We can see exactly where this is going. I can schedule, just like with everything else, exactly when this is going to be happening. And I can replicate all of my local snapshots to this location as well if I want to. But really, it's just like all of our other software where you simply dictate the schedule, where it's going and what it's doing, and super easy process. You hit OK, and then you're all set to go there. Now, another really great one, and this is good for organizations that might have a lot of different devices that need to do this, it can be kind of hard to keep track of this. So simply click on the Info tab on any of your replication tasks, and you can see exactly what's going on with that task. So here we can see I'm on my source server and I'm sending it over to my destination server. We can see when the next replication will happen and when the last one did occur. We can look at any of the statistics of kind of what the transfer rate is, how much bandwidth we're taking up here. And really cool, we can see the topology as well. So again, if we have kind of a more complicated topology where we have units A through Z, and they're all kind of backing up to each other or to one centralized location, we'll see this drawn out pretty simply. We can easily highlight whichever device that we're going to, and then we can go ahead and log into them and change anything that we might need to change. In this case, unit A is going to unit B, and we could set it up so unit B is also going to unit A, and they'll kind of act as each other's offsites. So really quick, really easy way to make sure you know exactly what's going on across your organization when you're setting up some of these kind of complex backup plans. Now, there is one more portion to this plan that we need to discuss, and that is backing up your data to the cloud. So Synology works with all of the major cloud providers that you or your organization might already have an established relationship with. This is your Dropbox, Azure, Backblaze, really any S3 storage provider as well. We've seen a lot of people move to services such as Wasabi, which is an S3 storage provider. Basically, you can send your data directly to the cloud for safekeeping, utilizing one piece of our software called Hyper Backup. And what's great about this, again, as with all of the software we've talked about today, is this is license-free and included. You can download it for free directly onto your NAS device after you've purchased it. Now, we also offer our own cloud storage solution as well, which is called Synology C2. This is fully integrated into our devices. Now, what's great about this and why I always recommend this to people who might not have a cloud storage solution already, but are using Synology devices is there are no surprise recovery fees for pulling your data down from the cloud. And all of your data is fully encrypted before it's even uploaded. So that makes sure that everything is protected on the device, in transit, and in the cloud. Now, this is super important for any sensitive data or HIPAA compliant data. And those recovery fees, those can kind of sneak up on you. Some other cloud services, if you have to download a lot of data at once because you're experiencing a disaster or some other major issue and you need that data back, they can sometimes hit you with really expensive fees. And then, you're kind of hit with two disasters at once in that case. So real quick, let's just back up all the data that we've snapshotted and send off to an offsite location to the cloud as well. Now, again, we're back in DSM. We're going to click on the main menu, but this time we're going to open up Hyper Backup. Now, here, instead of the Overview tab, I actually haven't created a task yet. So it's going to ask me to create a task instead of backup destination. And we can either do this to a local folder, a remote NAS device, or even to a USB device that's connected to our NAS, or Synology C2 here. That's it for the Synology options. If you have other data or devices in your organization, for instance, sometimes people have an older server kicking around and maybe the board or some other staff member making decisions here kind of relegates that, well, we already have a server, so we got to make sure that we can use it to kind of its maximum potential. You can do a bunch of different file server protocols as well, and just make sure you have an extra copy of your data that's on your NAS. And then again, like I mentioned, we work with a whole host of different cloud services, all of the popular ones. And then again, with S3, that kind of opens up a lot more options as well. So in this case, let's make a Synology C2 task. I'll click Next, and it'll prompt me to log into my Synology C2 account. Now, I just logged in before the webinar, so we should be connecting here. And once we're connected, we'll see that the interface for creating a C2 task is super clean and super easy. I currently have about 1 terabyte of maximum storage. You can use about half of that left. And what's also great is if I go up here to the top right-hand corner, I can change which data center that I'm sending my data to. So I can do this at our US Seattle one if I'm in North America, or if I'm elsewhere or I just want to kind of send it elsewhere for whatever reason, I can do that here as well. I can also upgrade my space really simply. I just click that link, kind of enter my payment information, exactly what I want, and then we're good there. And it'll instantly update to that storage target. In this case, let's just say I want to go to the storage pool. I want to allow my storage pool access to my device and vice versa. Once I click allow, it's going to send that connection up, and now we can create that backup task. Now here, it's just setting up the directory. If we've moved the device, we can also relink to an existing task. And I'll just make sure that it just updates the connections and then everything's exactly as it was. Click next here. And now we can change exactly what data we are sending up. So I can either do my entire volume, all the drives that are on my NAS device and everything that's stored on here, or just specific data. For instance, my important data, really care about that. Everything else, maybe I'm not so worried about. Well, let's take my active backup data as well. So we're taking all my active backup, my PC backup, and all of my team's work. We're going to back that up to the cloud for safekeeping. And what's pretty cool about this as well is creating file filters. Now, this just makes sure that if you only need specific files, you can include their extension here. Or if you have a lot of files that you really don't need, there's temporary files or things that might just be inappropriate to send up to the cloud, such as .mp3, if anybody's storing music in our work folders here. We can just make sure we're excluding that, and that won't be backed up to the cloud. And you can add as many extensions as you see fit. Press OK here and click Next. Now, I always recommend that people do this, especially if they're doing a lot of different things with their NAS device. This just makes sure that you're backing up all of your system settings as well. So if you have a lot of rules set in place, a lot of users, and kind of a lot of tasks going, if your NAS device does have an issue and it fails, you want to make sure that all of those settings are backed up as well, just so you don't have a ton of work to do when you try to get back up and running. Click Next. Enter the task name here, Synology C2. Sounds like a really great task name. You can enable task notifications, so we can just get notified on any rules that we see fit. If we want a text or if we want an email, whenever this is successfully backed up to the cloud. We can set bandwidth limitations here as well. Now, this is great, especially if we have people kind of working around the clock and we don't really have a good time to be sending a lot of data to the cloud. This way, we can just make sure that it's never going to be taking up too much of our internet speeds, but we are getting that data up there. Again, like with everything, we can enable a backup schedule exactly when we see fit. We can also enable integrity checks, which we default to about once a week here. That just makes sure that you're making sure all the data in the cloud is has been transferred successfully and completely, and that everything is kind of secure in that manner. You can also enable client-side encryption, which a lot of clients do this. Just makes it a lot easier and kind of lets you rest more assured that your data is fully protected as it's traversing across the internet. I'll click Next here. We can enable backup rotation as well. Now, this is sort of like those retention policies, but just make sure that we're not keeping kind of defunct or data that we don't need in the cloud anymore, or things that have been overwritten, or things that have changed really drastically. So we can do that here. You can also enable to keep that off, or you can set up, again, as with all of our software, a lot of customized retention rules to get really granular with what you're doing here. I'll click Apply here. And then it's going to be creating this task. So it's going to be communicating with my cloud account and kind of getting ready to send that data. It's opting all of those rules together. And as soon as this is done, it'll prompt me if I want to start a backup right now. Now, in this case, I don't want to kind of saturate my bandwidth with all of this data. So I'm going to click No here. And we can see exactly when this next backup is going to occur. Now, this is great. We could also just click backup now. Again, anytime we see this, if we want to just make sure that our data is backed up, but right now we don't have one. Very soon we will. And now we've protected our device completely. We've got all of our PCs, our devices all backed up to our NAS. All of that's being snapshotted on the device and off premises. And now our important folders are also being saved to the cloud. So there's going to have to be a lot of disasters happening at once in various places for us to lose our data for sure. Now, before I go, let's talk about how we can select the right hardware for the backup plan that we want to implement. Now, of course, there are a few things that we really need to take into account here. These are questions that I always ask anybody I work with, just to make sure that we're getting the right device and the right plan of action for them. So first, how many devices are we backing up? What is the total number of PCs and servers, virtual machines, or even your Microsoft 365 or G Suite accounts or inboxes or calendars that we really want collected and saved on premises? Now, this can take a minute maybe, but always recommend that you have this number kind of somewhere on hand just so you know exactly what you need backed up. Secondly, how much data do we currently have across all of these various platforms? When we're building out a hardware solution, we need to make sure that it can contain all of this data, but that it also can have foreseeable growth built in so we don't instantly outgrow our box. It's a really good idea to kind of make sure that you have enough space to hold all of the data that you currently have, and then maybe over the next 3 years, you don't have to keep buying additional hardware for all of the data that you're generating every 6 months or year over year. And that's not difficult with us. You can definitely do that. Now, third, what are our retention requirements? Now, certain documentation may not need to be stored for longer than a few months or a year. Some of it can just exist during the school year and then be let go, and you create new data onto the next year. But some data does not fall into that, and some of it we really have to hold on to for many years or even forever. We've seen that in some cases with governmental and educational deployments. So how many years do we want our backups to cover? How far do we want to be able to roll back? And is there certain data that doesn't have to be held on to, but other data that really does? Now, lastly, are we preparing for an offsite server at a secondary location, or are we setting up a cloud for long-term storage? Now, again, ideally, we would set up both just for extra layers of protection and disaster recovery. But once we get these figured out, and once we've selected exactly what our full plan looks like and what we have the budget for, we can move on to the selection of the hardware. Now, of course, with the hardware, there are another few things to consider. Our initial primary backup is going to be responsible for taking data from a variety of different machines and locations across your network or even across the internet. So this might require some extra computing power, as it has a lot of tasks and jobs to keep up with and maintain. Now, we set up just 3 tasks on my computer, or on my NAS, but that was just for me. If that device had to also manage 50 other employees and then 100 other servers or data stores somewhere else, we might be looking at kind of a different backup here. Now, our offsite location, however, is only backing up all of the data from one site. It's just taking the data from our primary backup. So instead of worrying as much about computing power, we can really prioritize cost per gigabyte of storage to make sure that we've got all of our data covered as cheaply and efficiently as possible. Now, the offsite backup is never really going to cost as much as that primary backup because, again, we don't need the performance to be as heavy as it is at our primary backup location that's doing all of the heavy lifting. Now, lastly, when we're sending our data to the cloud, we need to check that all of that cloud services encryption and privacy options fall within our regulations and expectations. Some of these cloud services might have bots trawling the data to kind of get a better analysis of what their users are storing and doing. But in a lot of cases, we don't actually want that. Even if it isn't a human being looking at this data, it's still being kind of processed in a way that we might not be comfortable with. So again, always check those encryption and privacy options. They're always in the fine print, and it's always good to know. Now, Synology offers more devices than I could possibly show you here, but I selected a small group to showcase a few models and what they're capable of. Now, our small 4-bay DS920 Plus can easily back up 10 PCs. While moving forward in the line and adding additional bays, we can provide you with a variety of devices that scale up to even 500 PCs being backed up and saved on premises. Now, everything I showed you today, I was running on my DS920 Plus, but any of these devices, they're going to look the same. You're going to set them up exactly the same. It'll just dictate how much power you have and how much storage you're going to have access to. Now, of course, we also have the rack-mounted flavor of all of these devices as well, which are often higher performing and capable of handling a variety of other tasks as well. As soon as we step into the rack-mounted options, we're also able to do kind of a lot of extra functionality on top of our backups and on top of our file serving, such as surveillance or virtual machine hosting. That does about wrap it up for me. So if you have any questions on anything that we discussed or didn't discuss here today, please feel free to reach out. My entire job is project consultation and education. So my team and I, we're always happy to get on a call and figure out a good solution for your specific needs. Additionally, we can always provide in-depth technical trainings on really any subject that you see fit or that you want to cover with Synology. And we regularly run webinars on everything that you can do with our devices as well. And with that, I'll be taking a look at some of these questions here that we've been getting in. And I believe we're also running kind of a raffle here. So if you watch this webinar live, we're going to be sending a link to a survey. And if you fill out that survey and let us know what you thought, you'll be automatically entered in a drawing as well. So let me open up some of these questions here. So perfect. Are there any limit on the number of accounts? And I'm guessing that's for backing up accounts here. Now, no, there is no limit, but we do really recommend that if you're going to be backing up more than 500 accounts or devices, that you just reach out to us for kind of extra consultation to make sure that we're covering all of your bases. Now, we do have a lot of people that are backing up thousands of accounts, but again, we really want to be talking to them to make sure that they're getting the right device and they're not just purchasing something offline. We're always happy to help in that manner. Now, if I delete, oh, sorry, and this is another question here. If I delete a backup task for a user, does it delete that user's backup data? So no, actually, that data will not be deleted instantly unless you set up a retention policy that would denote that it does. But otherwise, if you delete a user, if somebody leaves your company or your school, either they, whatever happens, their data will still be backed up onto the device unless you actually go in and opt that you don't want to be holding onto that data anymore. Is active backup software available for purchase? So no, it's actually completely free. It comes with the hardware. So if you have a Synology device, you can easily back up any of that data. You simply just download it from our package center. And I do want to note that this only active backup and some of these other applications are limited to the Plus, the XS, the XS Plus, the FS, or the SA series of models here. So if you ever have a question on if a device supports an application, feel free to reach out. We also denote it on our website really clearly as well. But again, any of these Plus series devices, these are typically where schools and businesses start looking. So that's where a lot of that functionality is going to be in place here. And let's see. There's one more question that I want to grab here, and that is, what are the main ways people get tricked into getting ransomware on their computers? So really the kind of biggest ones are through emails or kind of other virus payloads like that. Now, sometimes a email will come with a PDF or like an exe file or something of that nature. If people download that, or even if they click on a link and they're brought to a different website that they don't know, sometimes that'll just automatically download and kind of cause problems from there. Really, that's kind of the biggest one. And oftentimes they're just blanket sending out these things to emails or web addresses, or they're kind of penetration testing your servers to see if there's any ways that they can log in and deliver the payload there. So really, again, strong password rules, making sure that everybody is educated on clicking links in emails, or making sure that they're only taking emails from people that they're expecting to get emails from. That's huge on the education front. And then making sure that your data is backed up, just in case something does slip through, which does happen. You can easily restore anything as you see fit. So that is kind of it for the questions that I see here. Anything that we missed, of course, we will make sure that we're reaching out to. Actually, hang on, it looks like we have maybe one more. And can we get your contact information to reach out for support? Now, of course, so we'll be sending the contact information into the chat here, I believe, for kind of my department and anybody on my team. and then we'll be happy to kind of jump on a call or make sure that we're handling anything there. The last question I want to grab is, when setting something like this up on a network, is customer support part of the cost of the NAS? So yes, our devices have a different range of kind of support, but all Synology devices, every single one of our NASs come with lifetime technical support. So if you have a device for 10 years, you can still call us up. You can still talk to us on chat or send in tickets, and we'll always be happy to help out. Now, a few of our different devices also come with hardware warranties rolled into the cost of the unit. The Plus series having a 3-year hardware warranty, and then units above that, like XS, XS Plus, have a 5-year hardware replacement warranty with next day air replacement in North America. But yeah, that about does it for my questions here. Again, anything else, we'll make sure we follow up with you. And I will turn this back over to Amber.
Thank you so much, Chris. Greatly appreciate all of the information. I certainly learned a lot myself, and definitely wish I would have known more about Synology when I was director of technology. So thank you so much for sharing.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate your partnership. So for all of you that were on today, please note that Sarah did put a link in the chat for a survey and to enter the raffle for what they are giving away. So please make sure to check that out in the chat window. The link is right there. In addition, I'm putting a link into the chat window right now for any of you who are interested in receiving professional development hours for attending the session today as well. So feel free to click on that link to receive your PDHs, your professional development hours. And with that, I just want to give a big thank you to Synology again for partnering with IDEA for offering this webinar today. We're really excited to continue partnering with Synology on some potential more professional development beyond a webinar series. So stay tuned for that. If you're interested in learning more, you can also reach out to me directly via email. So thank you again for joining us. You will receive a copy of this recording. You will also receive additional information and resources that Synology will be sharing out in a follow-up email tomorrow. Mike is asking, is Synology working with ILTPP and LTC to implement backup services to places such as the ROEs and other important local and statewide offices? Great question, Mike. I'm not sure if Synology is working with ILTPP and LTC, but we can certainly make that connection as well if they are not. I can talk with Synology about that offline. All right, thanks again, everybody. We really appreciate you joining. If you have any questions, please reach out. And thanks again to the Synology team for joining us today.